Hello everyone and welcome to Sunup. I'm Lyndall Stout. We now know that the 2011 drought has cost Oklahoma's agriculture industry more than $1.6 billion. And after our long hot summer, the outlook for winter and spring doesn't look so great either. All thanks to the return of the weather pattern called La Nina. Simply put, La Nina is a cooling of the equatorial Pacific waters off the west coast of South America.
When we get cooler than normal waters in that area of the ocean, it tends to change the large-scale air patterns in that part of the globe, which then in effect changes the air patterns across the world. And so La Nina, like its counterpart El Nino, can have a global impact.
Gary McManus is the Associate State Climatologist. He says last winter's La Nina marked the beginning of our current drought. And now, after reviewing data and ocean patterns, she's back.
The Climate Prediction Center issued a La Nina advisory, which means that the La Nina is there and is expected to continue as we go throughout the rest of this year.
For Oklahoma producers, it basically means more of the same.
A La Nina normally gives you an increased chance of warmer and drier weather, just like we saw last year for much of the winter and into the spring. So as we go through the fall and into the spring, the odds will be increased that we will have dry weather and possibly warmer weather as well.
Even though this year, she's weaker.
This La Nina at this time doesn't look as strong, but the research shows that the strength of the La Nina is not necessarily as important as the fact that it's just there. We're also going into this period with much, much worse conditions as far as our precipitation deficit goes. Again, one of the driest last 365 days on record for western Oklahoma, and it's getting that way into south central and southeastern Oklahoma as well.
In addition, we could still see extreme weather events.
We can still have blizzards, we can still have ice storms, we can have tornadoes, fires, everything's still under the possibility even with La Nina. Now this is not etched in stone. Our forecast is not written in permanent marker. We could still have a very wet winter. There are other climate factors that become involved. It's merely that the deck's a little stacked against us at this time.
But if we don't get the moisture and the drought continues, cattle producers are making plans. Record sale numbers at auctions indicate dramatically reduced inventories. And at this point, Extension Rangeland Specialist Dave Lallman says to prioritize and preserve pasture for the future.
If they're going to be feeding, our recommendation is, and particularly talking to our forage specialists, their recommendation is get those cattle off of those pastures if at all possible. Just get those cows up into an area that we'd consider to be a sacrifice pasture, a small pasture maybe of improved forage or something, or a dry lot, and implement a good feeding program for that small nucleus of cows that they've decided to hang on to. I think that's the primary thing. Continued grubbing of these dry pastures through the fall and winter will be devastating for years to come.
If producers haven't already done so, Lallman suggests early weaning of calves to reduce nutrient requirements by 30 to 50%. Also consider what's called limit feeding of hay. Buy a more efficient hay feeder, and for mature cows,
a feed additive called monensin or rumensin is the trade name. By just including it in the diet, it costs about 2 cents per cow per day and can cut the feed intake or the need for feed by another 10 to 15%.
Another option, leasing land in the mountain states or Dakotas where pasture conditions are ideal. Of course, it's an individual decision.
If you think about the projected cost of maintaining a cow here in Oklahoma with all purchased feeds, hay and supplement, you're looking at anywhere from $2 to $3.50 a day to maintain those animals. And so that would pay for a lot of rented pasture somewhere else.
Finally, if you do have a good spot of pasture left,
you might still consider, even though it's the middle of September now, consider putting out, say, maybe 30 to 40 pounds of nitrogen on the really deep soil land that you have, the better land, because it has the most likely opportunity to respond to the greatest extent. And then if we do get some rain, You might be able to grow 1,000, 1,500, and if we get a lot of rain, maybe even 2,000 pounds of forage by the first frost.
And as for crop management in the weeks ahead,
last fall, at least most of the state started off with a little bit of stored soil moisture.
but this fall, it's a different scenario entirely. Cropping systems specialist Chad Gotze recommends adapting your management practices to protect yield potential next spring. For wheat and canola planting, think about maintaining some residue cover to retain moisture near the surface in the seed zone.
Some of that residue will help eliminate some of the evaporative losses. So if we do get rain, help maintain that surface soil moisture, help establish that stand.
When it comes to wheat seed, look for ways to save on cost, but still consider the bottom line.
We don't want to plant a variety or a hybrid that would really limit our yield potential just because the seed is cheap.
Another consideration, residual nitrogen that's likely already in the soil.
Looking at taking a soil test, evaluating how much nitrogen you have in the field already, pH, P. So in a lot of cases, we think producers can wait until spring or late winter to make their top dress applications and really reevaluate what their yield potential is at that point.
Regardless, conditions for planting are pretty dismal.
Of course, wheat can be planted a lot deeper than canola, but we really don't have that moisture in that surface 2 inches to get a stand right now in most of the state, just because of the lack of recent rainfalls. It really will take a rainfall event in most areas of the state to get an adequate stand or enough moisture for germination purposes.
And despite the La Nina predictions, it could all change.
Every La Nina works different. There are other climatic factors involved. So really we're just on a wait and see basis, but we do know that the odds are a little bit stacked towards drier and warmer conditions.